Great linguist and intellectual who will forever live on even after his death, Noam Chomsky. He said in a recent interview, "We're lucky Trump is a clown, but our luck may be running out." And then this is from Alternate, and they say the linguist and philosopher says a more charismatic figure could be a real danger. So if you recall, in the past, he had actually predicted Trump's rise before Trump came on the scene. He said something to the effect that somebody charismatic is going to come in and basically blame the blacks and blame the immigrants and stuff like that, and then he's going to get a huge rise. And he effectively did predict Trump, because that's effectively what he was. But here is what they say here. They say, oh, well, sorry, I'll just tell you the quote. That's what's important. Quote, "A major topic in academic political science is comparing popular attitudes with public policy. Pretty straightforward public policy. You can see popular attitudes we know a lot about from extensive polling. And the results are pretty startling. It turns out about 70% of voters, which is maybe half the electorate, about 70% of voters are literally disenfranchised, the lower 70% on the income scale, meaning their own representatives pay no attention to their attitudes and preferences. If you move up the income scale, you get a little more correlation, a little more influence. The very top, which is probably a fraction of the 1%, if you could get the data, that's where policy is set." Yeah, it's probably the 0.1%, not point. I don't know if it's 0.1 or 0.001, or sorry, not 0.001, just 0.01, because that's the difference between 10% of one and then 1 of 100. I think it is 0.1 though. But anyways, so he is correct here, but he actually goes on. He says, "How are they maintaining support of the people they are kicking in the face? That's not uninteresting, and if you look into it, there are a number of factors." And then he goes in to talk about Sanders here. He says, "What happens when there's an opposition? That's very striking. The most astonishing fact about the last election, which is the Sanders achievements. That's a break from a century of American political history. As I said, you can pretty well predict electoral outcomes simply by campaign funding alone. There's other factors that intensify it. There's here comes Sanders, somebody nobody ever heard of. No support from the wealthy. No support from corporations. The media used a scare word, socialist. Came from nowhere. He would have won the Democratic Party nomination if it hadn't been for the shenanigans of the Obama-Clinton party managers who kept him out. He might have been president from nothing. That's an incredible break. It shows what can happen when policies are proposed that do meet the general just concerns of much of the population." So he touches on Bernie Sanders there as well. Something that he's talked about, he was actually quite a big supporter of Bernie Sanders back in the primary when he was running. Here's what he says. He says, "If there had been a charismatic figure in the United States who could mobilize the fears, anger, racism, a sense of loss of the future that belongs to us, this country could be in real danger. We're lucky that we've never has been an honest, charismatic figure. McCarthy was too much of a thug, Nixon was too crooked. Trump, I think, is too much of a clown. So we've been lucky, but we're not going to be lucky forever necessarily." So in effect, what he's saying is this. Trump has capitalized off of, xenophobia is probably the main one. You had xenophobia, you had racism, you had anti-immigrant rhetoric, which is xenophobia. And you had, the white supremacy, the alt-right. And what he's saying is, if there was somebody who wasn't a clown, who knew how to get legislation through, but was also able to be a charismatic figure who won over those voters and wins, then we're in trouble. So what he's saying is totally right. What he's saying is you have the campaign Trump, but knows how to get legislation through and is not a clown. We are in real danger. And I wouldn't say that we never will see that, because clearly we didn't think we'd see Trump. So I think Noam Chomsky is onto something. And if there's anybody we should believe, it's definitely Noam Chomsky. What's up, guys? It's Saul Hill here. You guys are watching The Progressive Voice. Make sure you guys click subscribe down below. We're fighting Donald Trump tooth and nail, and we need your help.